Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild, a fascinating and incredibly urgent question. What if forecasting the weather was actually the secret to predicting a deadly viral outbreak? We're going to look at a recent, highly detailed case study from Balochistan, Pakistan, that tracks the exact, undeniable relationship between climate and dengue fever. It's honestly a brilliant example of how we can use data to uncover the hidden biological engines that drive disease. Okay, just take a look at this massive number, 26,482. That is the total number of confirmed dengue fever cases out of 125,780 diagnostic tests conducted across districts in Balochistan just in 2024 alone. I mean, that is an enormous public health burden for a single region in 1 year. Dengue is one of the fastest growing viral infections globally, and we know in severe cases it can literally be life-threatening. But to really wrap our heads around why this number is so high, we need to zoom in on exactly where these cases are popping up. So let's jump into Section 1, the dengue threat, mapping the outbreak. When we map this out, the physical burden of the disease becomes super clear. See that intense red zone? That's the district of Turbat. Turbat alone recorded 6,212 cases with a frankly staggering 38% positivity rate. And as you can see with the orange and green zones, these severe outbreaks weren't just isolated to one spot. Places like Jhal Magsi and Panjgur were also hit really hard. So we're looking at a highly uneven spread. The virus is completely thriving in very specific geographic pockets, which immediately tells us that local environmental conditions are playing a massive, massive role here.
That brings us to Section 2, the seasonal surge, when the virus strikes.
Because these infections, they definitely aren't happening at random. There is a huge temporal surge here. Just look at how transmission absolutely explodes during the summer and autumn months. We're talking 8,708 cases in the summer and 7,336 in the autumn. Actually, if we look at the specific monthly breakdown from the study, cases peak at almost 4,000, 3,958 to be exact, in September alone. This just proves that dengue in this region is entirely at the mercy of the changing seasons. The virus essentially follows this step-by-step biological timeline dictated by the weather. In Step 1, the cold winter significantly suppresses mosquito breeding, right? It drops cases to their lowest point at just over 1,000. Then, Step 2, spring, acts as a build-up phase where rising temps slowly wake the vector populations back up. And finally, Step 3, summer and autumn, creates those ideal, humid, warm conditions for peak transmission, giving us over 16,000 cases combined. But, seasons is a pretty broad term. What exact weather metrics are actually causing this? Let's dig into that in Section 3, the climate engine, temperature and the Goldilocks rain. Check out this number, 11,118. That represents the sheer volume of cases that occurred during the absolute warmest temperature quartile of the year. The researchers found this deadly, direct chain reaction. Every single degree warmer translates directly to more cases. Heat is literally the ultimate accelerator here. Warmer temperatures not only help the mosquitoes survive and breed way faster, but they actually shorten the incubation period of the virus inside the mosquito itself. But here is where it gets kind of counterintuitive. While temperature operates on this basic hotter is worse rule, rainfall operates on what we can call a Goldilocks effect. The rain has to be just right for mosquitoes to really thrive. Notice how it's not the heaviest rain that causes the most disease. Quartile 1, which represents moderate rainfall, is actually the most dangerous, causing over 6,500 cases. Why is that? Well, moderate rain creates perfect, undisturbed, stagnant pools of water, the exact kind of real estate mosquitoes need to lay their eggs. Conversely, look down at quartile 4, the extreme rain. Cases actually drop off a bit to 4,463. Those massive downpours physically flush the mosquito larvae right out of their habitats. It's a fascinating biological threshold. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, the 1-month lag, tracking the biology. Now that we know temperature and rainfall drive the numbers, we have to look at the timing. Because the weather today doesn't automatically give you dengue today. There's a lag. On the one hand, temperature has a direct, immediate impact on viral replication speed. But rainfall? Rainfall has a delayed 1-month lag. Think about the biology for a second. The rain falls, it takes time to gather in those stagnant pools, it takes time for the larvae to hatch, mature into adults, and finally start biting humans. And researchers actually prove this mathematically using a really cool statistical model called a negative binomial regression.
By analyzing the data, they confirmed that lagged temperature and lagged rainfall significantly predict the explosion of cases in the following month. What this means in plain English is that by looking carefully at today's rain gauges and thermometers, health officials essentially have a crystal ball. They can see exactly what the outbreak is going to look like 4 weeks from now.
So how do we use this crystal ball? Let's look at Section 5, Predicting Future Risks, turning data into a shield.
How do we take all this regression math and turn it into an actual tool that saves lives? The solution is the climate-based dengue risk index. This framework takes all the guesswork out of outbreak management. When temperatures hit that sweet spot of 25 to 32 degrees Celsius, and you combine that with high rainfall, boom, that region is instantly flagged as very high risk. It's a beautifully simple system born from some very complex data. By categorizing these specific climatic combos, the patterns become undeniable. High temperature plus high rain, that's your maximum burden right there, with over 8,400 cases. But notice this, high temperature, even with low rain, still yields almost 8,000 cases, simply because the heat alone sustains vector survival. Contrast that with the bottom scenario. If the temperature is low, even high rainfall won't trigger a massive outbreak. The cold just suppresses growth regardless of how much water is lying around. By tracking these four combinations, health officials know exactly where and when to deploy their vector control strategies. And that leads to a pretty sobering conclusion, just reading straight from the study's abstract here. Dengue transmission in Balochistan is highly climate-sensitive and increasingly shifting toward an endemic transmission pattern. The huge takeaway for us is that this disease is no longer just a random seasonal anomaly. Because of favorable, repeating climatic conditions, it is structurally cementing itself into the region's everyday reality. It is becoming endemic. We've seen the undeniable, mathematically proven link between our shifting climate and the violent spread of this virus. And it leaves us with a critical thought to ponder. As global temperatures continue to rise and weather patterns become more erratic, the map of habitable zones for these mosquitoes is expanding. The data shows us exactly how to predict their next move. The real question is, are we actually prepared to act on it before they arrive? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. And as always, keep questioning the data around you.